There are three main points to this presentation. Firstly, we'll look at the main uses of PowerPoint, and in this presentation I will be focusing on using PowerPoint for teaching. Secondly, I will describe three important cognitive principles, and thirdly, we will look at some practical ways of adhering to cognitive principles when constructing lessons using PowerPoint. You will mostly be using PowerPoint for presenting information, sharing information with your audience, and teaching to guide the audience in their processing of the presented information. In other words, aiding their learning or cognition. When your goal is information presentation, your slides can contain more information and be more difficult to process. However, since your goal is simply information presentation, you're not necessarily concerned with whether or not the audience can cognitively process the presented information. Your aim with this slide would not be to teach your audience how to manage acute onset headaches, but to make them familiar with the fact that this resource is available on the hospital intranet, and to explain that clicking on the brain image opens a list of indications and contraindications for CT brain scanning. Learners have to process the information you are presenting to them and integrate it with prior knowledge in order to construct long-term memories. Multimedia instructional methods such as PowerPoint can overload the learner's relatively limited cognitive capacity. Avoiding cognitive overload when designing teaching material is extremely important. A poorly designed slideshow can inhibit learning, just as a well-designed one can promote learning. You need to apply accepted cognitive principles in designing your PowerPoint presentation to ensure that your audience benefit from your efforts. Cognitive scientists describe three important principles of information processing that are relevant for PowerPoint users. Firstly, dual channels. People have two separate information processing channels for receiving input, visual and verbal. Presentations should use both words and pictures to convey the message. Secondly, limited capacity. Both the visual and verbal input channels have only a limited capacity. People can pay attention to only a few pieces of information in each channel at a time, so filling the slides with too much information can easily overload people and hinder learning. Keep it simple and eliminate clutter. Active processing. People understand material when they pay attention to the relevant input. Organize it into coherent mental structure and integrate it with their prior knowledge. Presentations should help learners to select, organize, and integrate information. For example, arrows can help point out important topics, or an outline can help the student construct a mental model. Let's get on to some practical tips. Speech is better than lots of on-screen text. You can remove some of the load from the visual channel by using narration rather than putting text on the slides. Don't fill the slide with bullet points that you use just to jog your memory or for reading off the screen to your audience. Don't use identical streams of on-screen text and narration. Narration accompanied by simple graphics or animation is most effective. Break complex messages down onto multiple slides. Smaller, comprehensible chunks of information are more easily assimilated than one large dose. Eliminate unnecessary information from each slide, reducing the visual and auditory information on the slide to only that which is essential to convey the message improves the student's cognitive processing. Some examples of possible unnecessary information are listed on this slide. Rather than using short cryptic headings, use longer newspaper-style descriptive headlines to summarize the content of each slide. This provides extra cues on how to process the material. Place words near graphics to reduce eye movements. Placing explanatory text near the graphic that it's illustrating. Narrate the animation rather than using explanatory text on the screen. Putting the text on the screen along with the animation divides attention and adds to cognitive overload. Draw the saline into the syringe up to the 10 ml mark. Use an informal, conversational presentation style rather than a formal academic approach. This has nothing to do with cognitive load, but a relaxed atmosphere reduces stress and improves learning. We looked at PowerPoint's main uses and focused on teaching. In examining cognitive principles, we talked about dual channels, the limited cognitive capability available to us all, and the need to actively process the information we receive. In the light of this, we outlined some ways to reduce the cognitive load and improve your PowerPoint lessons. Thank you for viewing this presentation.